Okay, hopefully you can still see me and also see the screen. Obviously, the title of today's webinar is an introduction to Cambridge, and that's me. I'm John Menzies. I'm the head of marketing for the Abbey DLD group of colleges. So that's obviously Abbey College Cambridge, but also includes DLD College in London and Abbey College Manchester. I'm actually based in Cambridge, so hence why I'm giving the presentation today on Cambridge. Brilliant. We'll just move through to the next page. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. What you can hopefully see in front of you is a nice map of the city centre of Cambridge and some of the very famous sites of the city. So the top picture you can see there is King's College Chapel in the snow in winter time. The middle image is punting on the River Cam with the Bridge of Sighs just in front of the punt there, obviously a very famous scene. And then obviously Cambridge is world renowned for its cycling and for its cyclists. So obviously some cycles in the city centre there. I have lived in Cambridge all my life. I was born in Cambridge, so I'm a Cambridge resident. It's a beautiful city. And the idea of this session is that it will give you hopefully a good idea of what the city's like. You'll get a little sense of the history of the city, the university, its place within the city, but also some of the things that you can do in the city centre. Obviously, it's impossible to include every single thing that Cambridge has to offer. So what I would say, where I have put information there, I've put some links in there, do some research, ask questions, have a look now. It's your chance to get excited about this amazing city that you're going to be coming to live in. But hopefully this gives you a nice little starter and an idea of what life's like in the city. Brilliant. Okay, so we'll get moving. Okay, so we'll start off with some facts about the city. The first thing, Cambridge's population is around about 150,000 people. So although Cambridge is a world-renowned city, it's actually quite small. You can see it's actually ranked 47th in terms of size in the UK. So actually, for a city, it's actually pretty small, pretty compact as well. And out of that population of 150,000, over 30,000 are students. So that would be with the two major universities in the city, but also students who are here on language courses, students like you who are studying at colleges and schools, their A-levels and GCSEs. So obviously Cambridge is a huge student city, but still remains relatively small for its prominence in the world. It's a very multicultural city. Cambridge has always drawn in people from around the world to study and work. The population demographics of Cambridge is very widespread. So we have many people living in Cambridge who are originally from Asia and South Asia, but also many Europeans living in the city. And also, obviously, we have very, very many residents who come in from places like North America and Latin America as well. So although Cambridge is probably in its look is very quintessentially English. It's a very multicultural city, a very liberal city, a very forward-looking and progressive city. So that's really important to know. The city that you're coming in is a city that has a history of welcoming people from all around the world. Cambridge is, for its size, one of the wealthiest cities in the UK, and it's also growing very fast. It's consistently voted as one of the best places to live and work in the UK. In the times of economic downturns, in times of difficulties, Cambridge has always maintained its growth. So Cambridge is very prosperous, and that also brings people in from around the world. There are many job opportunities in the city, in the areas like high technology businesses, biotechnology. Cambridge is a world leader, really, and certainly a European leader in those areas. So for its size, Cambridge is very economically powerful, and that's reflected in the population. It's Cambridgeshire's county town. So what that means is, in the UK or in England, we divide areas into counties. So that might be the equivalent of a state or a region or a province where you're from. In Cambridge, in the UK, we call them counties. And Cambridge is the county town of Cambridgeshire, which means it's kind of the administrative centre of this county. Some interesting facts about the weather. I know that's always a bone of contention when you're thinking of coming to the UK. Cambridge is officially the UK's hottest place. So last year in July, we recorded a temperature in the Botanic Gardens, just a stone's throw from where I'm sitting now in the college, and that temperature was 38.7 degrees. So that was officially the hottest on record in the UK. Cambridge is also the UK's driest, in the UK's driest region. And receives around half the UK average annual rainfall. Most of our weather in the UK comes from the west, From the Gulf Stream, which starts down in the Caribbean, hot, wet weather, which dominates. And by the time that's got to us in the east, it's usually dumped most of its weather over the west of the country. So it does mean that it rains a little bit less here in Cambridge. Sometimes in the winter, we have weather that comes in from Siberia, and it can get quite cold as well. But generally, it's pretty mild climate here in Cambridge. And that leads to a couple of questions that I always get asked when I'm doing tours. First one is, what will the weather be like in September? Well, that's a really good question. Generally speaking, it's quite mild. The temperature averages around about 20 degrees. So it's not too cold, but it can dip down a little bit as well. But the thing to remember, as we go into the winter, the temperature will go down. So my advice to students is, if you come from a country that's quite warm, maybe on the equator or a subtropical country, it may feel a little bit cooler than what you're used to. But otherwise, if you're coming from a country that's maybe a little bit cooler as we go into winter, it'll probably feel a bit warmer. So bring clothes that are appropriate. I would always say bring a jumper and a raincoat, but also maybe bring some shorts and t-shirts as well. And the other question, which is a little bit harder to ask, is it going to snow? The answer to that is, who knows? Generally speaking, we don't get too much snow in this part of the country, but usually we maybe get 1 or 2 days in the winter. Typically, it's not a Christmas. We haven't had a white Christmas here in Cambridge for a long time, but quite often in February or March, we'll get a little bit of snow as well. So it's very difficult to say. Some years we have lots of snow, some years we have none at all. Some years we barely get frosts in the winter. So it's very, very changeable. But hopefully, if you haven't seen snow before where you're from, you will see some while you're here. Certainly, you can go to other parts of the UK where it's pretty much guaranteed. Okay. So just a quick idea of location. You can see the map on the left is the UK, and you can see Cambridge. Hopefully you can see my cursor just positioned there slightly above London, about 50 miles to the north of London, and pretty much in line with Oxford there, which is obviously the other famous university city here in the UK. Cambridge is well located. So you can see actually the location of Cambridge within the wider region here, which is called East Anglia. I talked about Cambridge being the county town of Cambridgeshire. You can see our neighbouring counties, Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex on this map. So this is a region that we call East Anglia, and you can see the location of Cambridge in relation to London. The good thing about the UK in general is it's quite small, quite accessible, so it's quite easy to get everywhere, and our students certainly take advantage of that. It's very easy to obviously reach London, but even cities like Manchester going up to Scotland is all achievable here. So quite often when our students have breaks for half term, they might go and visit other parts of the UK or indeed Europe. But I just wanted to show you exactly where Cambridge was located within the UK. And within the city itself, you can see hopefully on the centre of the map there, this is where the college is located within the city. Just to give you an idea, just to the north, this area around here is pretty much the centre of Cambridge. So you're talking probably about 2 kilometres into the city centre from the college. We're just to the south of the city centre. So it's a nice central location. As I mentioned, Cambridge is a relatively small city and relatively compact as well. And hopefully the thing that you can see that I'm going to talk about later is there's lots of green spaces as well within the city centre. So Cambridge Abbey College really has a really good location in terms of you're very accessible for shops, restaurants, but also it's a little bit of a quiet area, so you can concentrate on your studies and there's not too many distractions. You can see just to the south as well, this is our hospital, Adam Brooks Hospital. Which is a world-leading research hospital aligned to the University of Cambridge, and where our students will obviously register with the NHS. This is about 1 kilometre to the south of the college. Okay, and our boarding houses, one of the great things about studying here in Cambridge is the boarding is very accessible and very close. So you can see the different boarding houses we offer just on the left-hand side. This is Abbey House, which is our on-site boarding, which is actually on campus. You can see I'm just highlighting it here. This is the campus where I'm sitting right now. And this is the accommodation that we prioritise for our younger students between the ages of 14 to 16, who might be studying GCSEs with us, pre-sessionals with us, or maybe their first year of A-levels. We have single rooms and we have twin rooms available for students there. Purbeck House, which is literally located just across the road from the college. This is actually the college with Purbeck House here in the foreground, and this is accommodation for students aged 16 plus. Tripos Court, which is just behind Purbeck House. So we have Abbey House here, Purbeck House, Tripos Court. And then our newest boarding house, which opened in the spring, which is called Orchard House, which is a little bit further. We generally favour this for our year 13 students, so students who are returning, maybe a little bit older, getting ready to progress onto university. But even that, as a boarding house, is a short walk away from school, and we can also organise transport into the college. So the great thing about being located in a small city is everything is accessible. You are very, very close wherever you live to the college. You're either on campus, next door, or a very short walk. Okay, so before I started talking about Cambridge today and some of the things that you can do, I thought I'd give you a really brief history of Cambridge. Obviously, it's very difficult to include everything that's happened, but hopefully this will give you a sense of how the city was founded and how it's developed over the years. Okay, so the first thing, Cambridge was founded in 865 AD by the Danes. So there's been human settlement in this area in Cambridge for well over 1,000 years. And obviously, if you can call yourself a true Cambridge person, you have to be able to trace your lineage back to the Vikings. I doubt many can. Obviously, going forward a couple of hundred years, we go to 1068, Cambridge has a population of around 2,000 people. Now that seems tiny by today's standards. You know, it's a small village here in the UK, and I'm sure where you're from, it's a very small settlement. But actually it was a relatively large town for the time, and quite an important area. Cambridge had regional and strategic importance, so it was quite contested. So Cambridge was already developing quite quickly. Around this time as well, the city was seized by the Saxons from the Danes, and you can see around that time William the Conqueror decided to build a castle, which you can see in the bottom image. So this was to fortify the town and protect the town, because as I said, it became a centre of strategic and regional importance. Moving forward a couple hundred years, Cambridge is still developing. This is really when the foundations of the Cambridge we know today were laid. And this is when the university was founded. So the University of Cambridge was founded in 1209. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I'm going to talk about the university in a little while. Obviously, as things develop, Cambridge continues to develop economically. By the 13th century, there is a market in the city, and the city is hosting what we call a yearly fair. Now, Cambridge's economy at this time is largely based around agricultural goods, so things like leather and crops, which they export, for want of a better word. Cambridge has a link to the sea via the River Cam, which goes into the Great Ouse and then into the Wash, which is in the north, which is a seaport at King's Lynn. And Cambridge was able to export its goods both around the UK via this river passage, but also into Europe as well. And likewise, as a response, they were able to import goods. So Cambridge had access to relatively sophisticated goods at this time. Things like wine were available, reeds from other agricultural areas, which had many uses, were all being imported into Cambridge. So already Cambridge has become a centre of commerce, and local tradesmen, local farmers would sell their goods at market. And hosting a fair is not kind of a fair as we understand it nowadays. When we talk about a fair, this was an event that went on for a number of days, and where people from the whole region would come in to sell goods, to barter. There'd be celebrations. So it was a really big event. So Cambridge, as you can see, has always been relatively important in the area. Moving on, Cambridge continues developing. By the 1600s, there is a regular stagecoach service. So if you've ever seen an old-fashioned film or a period film where someone's riding a horse-drawn carriage, this is what we talk about when we talk about as a stagecoach. And interesting, around this time, quite prescient when we talk about transport and how that can maybe link to the passage of disease around the world. The stagecoach coincided with plague outbreaks in the city. So really interesting comparison to modern days as technology develops and as transport develops. So we saw the plague in Cambridge, but despite this, Cambridge continued to develop, continued to prosper. And by the 1700s, the city had its first newspaper, it had its first bank, it had a shire hall, so a centre of regional government, a guild hall, so an area for commerce, and also a hospital. So by this point, Cambridge is really starting to develop into the modern city we see today. The 1800s, contextually, this was a time when really the UK or Britain as it was probably more commonly known, was really dominating economically. So it was a really strong economic power in the world. And around this time, really a lot of development started happening. So we got our first rail station in Cambridge, so connecting to London via rail, obviously replacing things like stagecoaches. So transport links were being built. We built our first sewers in the city. The first police force was established. It's quite amazing to think that the city didn't have a police force until the 1800s, but that's the case. And then we had gas lighting come to the city, and then later on electricity as well. And you can see by 1900 the population has grown, but it's still relatively small by today's standards, 38,000. And in 1951, Cambridge actually became a city. So I talked about Cambridge being a relatively small city by UK standards, and I'm sure by your standards of your own countries, you would still consider it very small. It wasn't actually made a city until the 1950s. So it was a town before that, but it became a city in the 1950s. And then in the modern day, we can really see the development of the city economically. So in the 1980s, an area called the Silicon Fen started growing. This was actually part of what we call the Cambridge phenomenon. So this was where undergraduate students from the university, postgraduate students from the university actually started to create their own startup companies, mostly in high technology industries, like computing, data, robotics, but also in things like biosciences. And they did this with the support of the university, and it was called the Cambridge phenomenon. So the University of Cambridge has been had lots of foresight in terms of supporting their undergraduate and postgraduate students to develop businesses. And they actually built a brand new area called the Cambridge Science Park, which you can hopefully see the picture there on the right-hand side. A huge space of land to the north of Cambridge, which they developed into office and laboratory spaces for these businesses that were being developed out of the university. And it's been commonly dubbed as Silicon Fen. Maybe you've heard of Silicon Valley, the area in California in the US, where you have the likes of Google and Facebook, and Amazon based. We have our own version of that here, which is called Silicon Fen, and it's probably the greatest cluster of high technology industry in Europe, and certainly incredibly successful. Many multi-billion-pound businesses have been developed out of that, and also it's become a home for companies like Apple and Google in Europe and in the UK as well. So incredibly successful economic development that's come out of the university from the undergraduate and postgraduate students, and with the support of the university, but has really fed into the development of Cambridge. And then 2010s, something that you may remember, obviously, when Prince William and Kate Middleton married, they took on the title of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. And the picture at the top you can see is actually them standing in the Guildhall in the centre of Cambridge when this was announced. That they were the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. They visited Cambridge and toured, and they were celebrated. So this was another thing that has really put Cambridge on the map, if it needed to be, really. Prince William himself is actually an alumni of the University of Cambridge. He did a master's in land management and estate management in the university, and he's worked in the city as well. So actually, in his days when he was a pilot, he was actually flying helicopters out of Cambridge Airport as part of the East Anglian Air Ambulance Service. So he has an affinity and close links with the university, and we quite often receive royal visitors as a result. Certainly the Queen has visited the colleges many times. She has very close links with the colleges. And then up to the present day, you can see in the bottom corner, another huge development that's happening very close to the campus, actually, to the college, is the Cambridge Biomedical Campus. So this is the area around the hospital that has really become a hub for bioscience research and biotechnology in Europe. So you can probably just see down in the bottom hand side there, this building here is actually the relocation, the development of the Papworth Hospital, which is a world-renowned, probably the world-leading heart hospital. And then on the left-hand side, you can see the development of AstraZeneca, which is one of the world's biggest pharmaceutical companies, and their European base is here in Cambridge. Okay, so that leads me on to talk about the university. I think this is a really interesting quote that I wanted to show to you guys. It kind of sums up the relationship between the university and the people who live in Cambridge. And it's by a famous author, famous English author called Daniel Defoe. He actually wrote a book called Robinson Crusoe, which you may have heard of. And I'll read this out for you. The trade of the town very much depends on them, the colleges. and the tradesmen may be said to get their bread by the colleges. And this is the surest hold the university may be said to have of the townsmen, and by which they secure their dependence of the town and consequently their submission. Okay, so what that means is what Defoe is trying to say is that there has often been a fractious relationship between the city of Cambridge, the people who lived there, and the university. And really, that only started changing probably around about the 1700s when the college itself, when the city developed economically away from the university, so it didn't become quite so reliant on the university. This is what Daniel Defoe is trying to say here: is that the people of the town are very reliant on the university, and often that relationship was quite difficult because maybe they felt captive by the university as well. Just to illustrate that, I've just put a picture down below. This is actually a depiction of a riot between the townsfolk and the people of the university, called the Town and Gown riots. And when you come to Cambridge, you'll probably hear that term, the town and the gown. There are numerous buildings that are named after it, but you might hear it in conversation. And what it really means is the relationship between the people who live in Cambridge, like me. I've not been to the university, and the scholars, the students at the university. And quite often this would result in violence. Back in the day, there would be riots and fights between the two. Nowadays, I'm happy to say that doesn't happen so much. The worst it might be is you might find a few comments on social media and in the local press. So generally now the relationship is pretty good. And I just wanted to sort of talk about that a little bit, because it's something that often people don't realize, is that it's not always been smooth sailing, this relationship between the university and the people of the city. Okay, some interesting facts about Cambridge, or some information about Cambridge. Obviously, I mentioned before it was founded in 1209. So the picture on the right-hand side is actually the Senate House, which is kind of the administrative centre of the university. And you can see it's lit up to celebrate its 800th anniversary. And this was back in 2009. So an incredibly old university. The university was founded by scholars from Oxford University who left Oxford University. Now, depending on which story you read, it might have been because they wanted to go it alone and start up their own university with their own ideas, or it may be that they were chased out of the University of Oxford, maybe because they did something a little bit naughty. We're not quite 100% sure, and I guess it depends on who you ask, but it was founded in 1209 by scholars who left Oxford to found a new university in Cambridge. And originally the university's purpose was to teach the clergy, so to teach priests, and then it developed obviously as time went with a charter from the king. It's the second oldest English-speaking university in the world. I'll let you ask yourself which one you think is the first, the oldest English-speaking university in the world. Pretty obvious from my what I was talking about before, but it's Oxford. So Cambridge is the second oldest English-speaking university in the world, and it's consistently ranked in the top 5 universities in the world. So Oxford and Cambridge traditionally feature in the top 5 universities in the world. Very much depends on who you ask. If you ask the Americans who the top 5 universities in the world, they might say things like the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. If you ask the British, they'll usually put Oxford and Cambridge up there. But one thing we both agree on is that Oxford and Cambridge are both ranked in the top 5 consistently in the world. The university is made up of 31 colleges. So individual colleges, which you may have heard of: King's College, St John's College, Clare College. These are the colleges that make up, so it's a collegiate university. Oxford is exactly the same, and they're open to visitors as well. So you can pretty much go and walk around most of the colleges. You can visit, turn up, and go in for free. Some charge a small admissions fee as well. So they're very accessible to locals and to visitors and to tourists. The university itself is divided into faculties, departments, and schools. So the way to think about it is you live in your college, like your accommodation, your boarding, and then you study in a faculty or a department. Okay, so there might be the Faculty of Natural Sciences or the Department of Education, and this is where you will study, or the Business School, and this is where you will study your subjects, your undergraduate or your postgraduate subjects. The university has 109 Nobel laureates and counting. The university probably has more Nobel Prize winners than most countries. So an incredible history of world-leading research coming out of the university and ideas leadership. It's very difficult to say what are the strengths of the university. I mean, across the board, I think it has over 40 undergraduate courses, and pretty much all of them are ranked in the top 10 courses in the world. But certainly Cambridge is world renowned for subjects like natural sciences, subjects like mathematics, physics, some of the humanities subjects as well, very, very strong. But across the board, it's an incredibly strong university in a range of courses, so very prestigious. And it has a £4.1 billion endowment, so it's one of the wealthiest universities in the world as well. There's an interesting saying in Cambridge, which is you can walk all the way to London and never leave Cambridge University land. So Cambridge University is a huge landowner, and the colleges themselves have quite significant wealth. To give you an example, Clare College, which is probably the most wealthiest of the Cambridge colleges, actually owns the O2 Arena in London. So if you ever find yourself in London attending a concert or an event at the O2 Arena, they have NBA basketball there and concerts from pop singers. That's actually owned by Clare College, which is obviously one of the biggest colleges of the University of Cambridge. The biggest thing I would say for you guys coming into Cambridge is that the university is a huge resource. Obviously, many of our students want to come and study at Cambridge themselves. That's a big ambition, and we have really, really good links, both from our students who progress onto the university. We have a number every year, but also our relationships with different colleges and their admissions tutors. But also there's a large amount of events and activities that you can attend. So every week there are free lectures that the university puts on a range of subjects. There are festivals and events, and we really encourage our students to take part and to learn as much as they can from these. Quite often, for example, we'll go down to the Faculty of Economics or the Economics Department to attend a lecture. We have the Marshall Lectures, for example, which are world-leading lectures in economics, and we'll take our students there. Or we'll go to the Festival of Ideas, which is more humanities-focused, or the Cambridge Science Festival. So there's a huge, huge advantage of living in Cambridge in the fact that you have this university on your doorstep, which has so many free events and lectures that you can attend, and we'll certainly encourage you to attend as many of them as possible, but as well you can choose as many as you want to go to. Okay, so another question that I get asked quite a lot when I'm doing a tour is, where is the university? And I'm just going to flip the screen a little bit to give you an idea. Okay, so the map you're looking at is the centre of Cambridge, just to the city centre here and to the west of Cambridge. And the buildings that you can see that are highlighted, these are university or college buildings. So you can see basically Cambridge is really a university with a city attached. And when people ask me, where is the university? I say everywhere. The vast majority of the city is university buildings, or certainly on university land. And here are some of the colleges. So remember when I was talking about colleges, these are the places that you would live. You may have tutorial sessions here with your tutors or with fellows, but you would attend your lectures at the departments. But you can see some of the colleges, very, very traditional, probably what you imagine. This one in the top left is Peterhouse, which is the first college, the original college when I talked about the university being founded. This was the first college. This one here with the lovely gardens is the Fellows Garden at Clare College, which is a beautiful space right by the River Cam, and a couple of times a year they open that up so anyone can go and visit and tour the gardens. This college here, actually a more modern college. This is Murray Edwards College, formerly known as Newnham College, if you've heard of that. So this is a more modern college, a more recent college. Not all the colleges are ancient. And then down in the bottom, on the middle one here, this is Corpus Christi College, which it has a place in my heart because I used to work there when I was younger. I used to actually work as a waiter, a silver service waiter in the formal halls. So I used to serve the undergraduate students in a very formal manner with a Latin mass, and we did silver service for them as well. So a very formal event which happens sort of a few times a week. King's College, probably the most iconic of the Cambridge colleges. This is the college itself and the chapel, where they have the famous choir, which they have the carols from Kings, if you've ever seen that at Christmas time. And then just down another college, oh, sorry, there we go back the way. And this one is Magdalen College down by the river. Beautiful college set down by the river there with the punting where you can hire a punt. And just opposite here, there are restaurants. So you can sit there and watch the world go by, which is lovely. And then just the final college is Homerton, which is actually our neighbour here at Abbey College, Cambridge. So this is the Grand Hall at Homerton. And we have a very good relationship with them. I'm staring out of my window now on the fourth floor here, looking at Homerton College, and we do quite a lot of events with them as well. So alongside visiting, maybe to attend some lectures at the Faculty of Education, which is based there if our students are interested in that. We also have our Christmas ball there quite often, and events throughout the year as well. So it's lovely for the students to have that kind of Cambridge ball experience, which is all part of it. Okay. So a question that I get quite a lot is which is the best college, or quite often I'll be asked which is the best college for mathematics or physics or chemistry. The answer, to put it quite bluntly, is whichever college you can get into. Remember, the colleges where you live, all the students who are studying mathematics go to the Faculty of Mathematics to do their lectures. So really where you live is a case of personal preference, or it might be a strategic choice. If you went to the College Gonville Keys where Stephen Hawking went to do physics, chances are there's going to be a lot of competition. So it might be better for you to choose maybe a lesser well-known college, because they maybe have less students, they have a higher quota they can accept for that course. So that's one of the things that we do. We work really closely with our students who are interested in going to Cambridge to make the right decision to which college they want to go to. One thing I would say, if you're here, if Cambridge is the ambitious, go and visit. We will arrange for you to go and meet admissions tutors, but just go in. Many of the colleges, like Corpus Christi, you can just walk in. There are porters at the front door. If you ask politely, they'll often let you have a look. If you tell them that you're really passionate about Cambridge University and you want to study there, often they'll maybe even give you a little tour around. So go and have a look, decide which college feels best. Like I say, some are very traditional, very ancient. Some are more modern. There are some colleges that are only for women. Most of the colleges are mixed sex, but there are some that are just for women. There are some that are very strong in sports. So if you're a keen sports player and want to pursue that, really, it's personal preference. You can also choose not to elect a college as well. So you can say, I will go to whichever college will accept me as well. And that doesn't mean that they look on your application any lesser. Okay, so some famous alumni, just to finish off talking about Cambridge. No competition here, but I'll go through them slightly. You can play along if you want. So up in the top left here, this is Charles Darwin, obviously very famous natural scientist and the theory of evolution. David Attenborough, who's very famous in the UK and around the world as a natural historian and a TV presenter. Tom Hiddleston, who is probably most famous for his work in the Avengers movies, the actor. He was Loki. I don't know the movies too well, but I think he was Loki, the chief baddie. And then you have Robert Oppenheimer, who is slightly different, the creator of the atomic bomb. You have Crick Watson and Rosalind Franklin, who discovered DNA corpus. Interestingly, Crick and Watson are often credited. Rosalind Franklin, who was also an alumni, did key work on there and is becoming more recognized for the work she did. So it's almost kind of they're co-credited now. It's becoming more that way. Stephen Hawking, obviously very famous around the city for the theory of everything. Theoretical physicist. Sacha Baron Cohen, famous for characters like Borat, Ali G, again another actor. And you have John Maynard Keynes, who's one of the fathers of modern economics, and Oliver Cromwell. Oliver Cromwell, if you don't know, was the Lord Protector. He was actually the leader of the English Revolution when the royal family, the king at the time, was disposed and actually executed. And he ran the country as a republic for a number of years before he himself was executed. He was actually born locally, born in Ely, and he used Cambridge as a base during the revolution, as a stronghold, and destroyed many of the bridges across the river to fortify the city. So you can see many famous world-leading people who have changed our world have studied at Cambridge and are still studying at Cambridge. You can probably notice a little bit of a diversity issue. We don't stray away from that. Cambridge has very traditionally, and Oxbridge has been a bastion of white middle class male students. But the one thing I'm pleased to say now is that the university has certainly opened up to admit more female students and more students from BAME backgrounds. There's a huge push in that as well. And certainly from our own experience of the students, they accept certainly an equal amount of male and female students. So that's great. So that is changing. Okay, sorry, went a bit too far there. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the city. Some pictures of Cambridge. And now people always say to me, does it really look like the pictures? And the answer is yes, to be honest. These are pictures of central Cambridge, and you can see it's very traditional, kind of, cookie cutter idea of what the UK may look like. And certainly in the city centre, these are all within, say, a 15-minute walk of the college. You will find streets like this towards the city centre and scenes like this. So as you can imagine, Cambridge is incredibly popular with tourists throughout the year. Generally speaking, as you move away from the city centre, the buildings become a little bit more modern, a little bit more spaced out. There's quite a lot of new residential development. As I was saying earlier, Cambridge is a very popular city to live and work in, so it is a growing city. And at the moment, we're trying to manage that growth with the development to make sure that the character of Cambridge is retained. The area of the city that we're in is probably a more modern area of the city, actually. More recent development. We're around the central station in Cambridge, and you'll find that there's probably some taller buildings around here, a little bit more modern, but again, we still have some university faculties and departments as well. So it's a little bit of a mix, but that does mean that it's a little bit quieter. We don't get so many tourists in this area, so it's a nice location, and where we are as a college is very quiet. Okay, getting around. In the top there, this is my key advice to you. How to get around in Cambridge: bike, bus, walk. Cambridge is not a great place to drive, quite busy. It's very flat. If you want to do any mountain climbing, you're going to be disappointed while you're studying here. It's a very flat city. And my advice would be to get a bike, to use the bus, and most of all, to walk, because Cambridge is quite small. If you're getting a bike, we can help you with that. We can provide lessons to help you get used to the road. My advice would be to keep the bike at school and to use it when you need to. And also, if you are doing things like shopping, to use the bus. This picture here is actually the bus stop at the top of our road, literally 2 minutes walk from the college, and this road leads you all the way into the city centre. It should take about 5 minutes. So if you're going shopping in the city centre, carrying bags, don't go on your bike. Don't try and balance them on your handlebars. Take the bus. It costs a couple of pounds return, and it's much more comfortable. And above all, walk, explore. Cambridge is a great city for walking. You'll find so much more by just taking the time and walking around, and you'll learn so much more about the city by doing that. But certainly these are the chief methods of transport around here. I bike to work, for example, from just outside the city centre, and it's the most pleasant way of commuting as long as it's not raining. Okay, so taxis in the city. We have a local taxi firm called Panther. You'll find them online. They're very reliable, quite reasonably priced. If we are organising any taxis from a college perspective, if we need to organise taxis to take students anywhere, we'll use Panther. And also there is Uber in the city as well. So if you have an Uber where you live, there is Uber within Cambridge as well, and you can use that. Travelling outside of Cambridge, Cambridge, as I said, is pretty well connected to London. There are regular trains, usually at least 2 or 3 an hour, that go back and forth between London and Cambridge. The fast train, if you catch it, basically if you're leaving Cambridge, you go 1/4 and 1/4. Takes around 50 minutes and will cost you around about £20 for a return ticket, depending on where you go and what time of day. Obviously, if you go during rush hour, many people commute into London for work. You might find it's a little bit more expensive, but certainly at the weekends you can get back and forth to London for a pretty reasonable rate. That will take you into King's Cross, and from there you can take the tube into the centre or walk into the centre of London. Nearest international airports, Stansted and Luton. Stansted certainly is probably about 20 miles from the city, so very accessible, takes about half an hour on a taxi. And from there, you'll find flights mostly to Europe, mostly low-cost providers such as Ryanair. But if, for example, in half term, your parents come, or if you wanted to visit other European cities, that's a great place to go and get cheap, reasonable flights. And there's also Luton Airport, which again is very similar. There are some into long haul flights from Stansted, not quite sure where, I think mostly to North America, maybe some more towards Asia as well. But the majority of long haul flights are from Heathrow and Gatwick. Certainly Heathrow, I think, is probably the one you'll be looking at most. And Heathrow is probably about 2 hours to drive. You can take the train to central London and then the tube out to Heathrow, but certainly I would advise taking a taxi just for the convenience of transport. Obviously, when you join us, we will arrange to meet you. We arrange taxi transfers. If you have any problems, if you have any questions, please speak to our accommodation team, who hopefully have been in touch with you, and they'll be able to work that out. You can also catch trains, obviously, into London, and you can catch the Eurostar. Go into Cambridge, go into King's Cross, walk across to St Pancras, and then you can take the Eurostar to European capitals such as Paris, Brussels, Amsterdam. So Cambridge is pretty well connected to London, and certainly for the rest of the UK, remember what I said. It's a pretty small country. It's fairly easy to get around. Certainly places like Edinburgh, places like Glasgow, Manchester, even to the west of the UK, it's all pretty accessible via bus or via train. Shopping. Okay, so Cambridge is a small city, but it does have quite a wide variety of shopping options. It's not London. Obviously, you can get into London fairly easy and have a wider range of shops, but it's pretty good. I'm not an expert at shopping, so please don't take my word it. And you can see I've put some links to some of the shopping centres there, so you can see the kind of shops that are available locally. To give you a broad overview, we have 3 shopping centres in and around the city centre: the Grand Arcade, the Lion Yard, and the Grafton Centre. The Grand Arcade, which is this one at the top here, is more top-end designer stores. So places like Hollister, there's a Tesla dealership there as well. John Lewis, which is a multi-purpose department store, but more top end. More kind of exclusive shops available at the Grand Arcade. Lion Yard and the Grafton Centre. The Lion Yard is actually connected onto the Grand Arcade. It's the oldest shopping centre in Cambridge, the original shopping centre. These tend to be more kind of your basic staples. So places like Topshop, H&M, which you may know from your home country, those kind of shops. There's also a Primark, which is hugely discounted fast fashion style clothes, which is available at the Grafton Centre as well. So there's a range of shopping options within those 3 shopping centres here in the city. Within the city centre as well, there's a wide variety of independent and chain stores that is located in mostly around the city centre, but also Mill Road, which is just to the east of the city centre, which is where you'll find many more independent shops and also some of the international supermarkets. So if you live in one of our boarding houses that had its own cooking facilities and you want to prepare some meals from home, you will probably find the supplies you need on Mill Road. Many of our supermarkets are also stocked with international staples, but this is certainly the place to go. And obviously supermarkets in the UK, everything that kind of is available in the UK is available in Cambridge. There are larger stores, there are out of town stores. Really, in the local area of Cambridge, you'll find, in the local area of the college, you'll find kind of some more kind of smaller versions of Tesco, Sainsbury's, your co-ops, where you can get snacks, drinks, basic supplies, and then there are larger shops which are more towards the edge of the city centre. But really, you shouldn't be worrying about that too much. You might just need to go and stock up on some water or drinks or things like that. Okay, sport and leisure. Cambridge is a huge sporting city. Certainly due to the university, the large proportion of students, quite a young population, quite an affluent population. So we're very active, and you'll find pretty much all the facilities that you need locally. Gyms wise, there are a number of gyms within a 5-minute walk of the college, which you can sign up to if you want to do things like free weights. We also have an on-campus gym, which is a smaller gym with running machines, rowing machines, and some weight machines, which you can use. And we run fitness classes out of our main hall. So things like circuit training, Zumba, I think we do Insanity as well, which I'm told is a fitness class. So there's quite a lot of opportunity to do that within the college. And then also, if you want to maybe do something that's a little bit more serious locally, there's quite a lot as well. And we can help you find the right kind of gym, the right kind of facilities for what you need. Next door, we have a tennis center where we run a weekly tennis club. It also has basketball facilities and a gym there as well. Swimming wise, we don't have a swimming pool on campus. But we do use a swimming pool, which is quite close, and we have a swimming club, which usually happens weekday mornings. So we have students who go and swim there, and we transport them there as well. And there are swimming pools, both open air and indoor, throughout the city, which you can access as well. Running wise, we have a running club that runs regularly and also takes part in local runs called park runs, which are organised 5K runs. If we have really keen runners, we also have events like the Cambridge Half Marathon as well, which we've had students enter and we've helped students get into before. So there's quite a lot of opportunity to pursue running and fitness. Throughout the city, there are various sporting clubs. Within our extracurricular program, we have over 60 clubs, and we tend to do the sports that our students want to do. So basketball, football, tennis, badminton, table tennis. We've done netball in the past, running, swimming, golf. We will create clubs for the sports that you're interested in. But if there is a sport that we don't do, cricket, rugby, for example, if we have enough students, we're happy to put on clubs. But what we can also do is facilitate you playing with a local club. So we have good links. Our head of extracurricular activities has really good links with local sporting clubs. So we've had students who've played basketball at a quite high level for the local team. We've had students who've played for the county in sports like badminton and table tennis. We've had students that we facilitated playing rugby. We even had an Olympic class rower last year that we were able to enable to train while they studied. So we can help you out. Just let us know. So there's quite a lot of opportunities. And supporting, obviously there's a huge amount of collegiate sport down at the bottom here. This is in the bottom hand side, this is the varsity rugby match between Cambridge University and Oxford University. Obviously we have rowing, which is very popular within the city. The boat race obviously is a huge rivalry between Oxford and Cambridge. So there's quite a lot of sports that you can engage with if you just want to watch as well. You can go and watch the university rugby team or the university badminton team play, cricket as well locally, football, and obviously there's a great opportunity to support. Football wise, our local team is Cambridge United. They're a bit rubbish. They're in the league, but they're not the best. But if you do want to go and visit them, let me know. I'm a fan, so I can organise that. And if you want to support Premiership teams, the two nearest teams for us are probably Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal in North London. Just a stop on the train down. About half an hour or 40 minutes away. You can access those clubs, but also we organise trips to places like Manchester as well to go and watch Manchester United, Manchester City. So just let us know. Again, we can always facilitate that, whatever you want to do. Okay, just a little bit on parks. As I mentioned, one of the greatest things I think about living in Cambridge is that you can walk, you can cycle, and you can find yourself in some beautiful countryside, some beautiful parkland. And here's some examples. Literally a 10-minute ride from the college and you would be into traditional British countryside. So you have a lovely mix of the urban with all the facilities that involves, the shops, the restaurants, the activities, but also you have that kind of mix of being able to be in nature as well. And you can see some of the parks that are locally very close to the college, just up on the top left. We have Jesus Green with the London plane trees. This is Parker's Piece, which is very close to the school. We're just the back here. This is actually the place where the rules of association football were first codified. So it's kind of the birthplace of football. It used to be called the Cambridge Rules, which the Football Association later adopted. Midsummer Common. So this is an area which is a little bit more wild, where we have a yearly fair and fireworks displays around November. Cove Fen, which is kind of, again, a more kind of wildflower area, which is very close to the university buildings. And you can see in the summer and spring, we do have cattle on the on some of the fields around the city. Don't be scared. If you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. They're very famous. They've been here for many years, so they don't cause too much of a threat. But what I'm saying is, go out and explore, go out and enjoy. These are great places. If you have a weekend and the weather's nice, hopefully when you come in September, the weather should be really nice for you. But throughout the year, these are spaces where you can relax, spaces where you can meet with other students. Really, really nice recreational spaces, play some sports, swim. There's lots and lots of these dotted around the city, and the city is a very green and beautiful city. Okay, eating out. I've just clipped a little search from TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor is always a great resource to see what's available. And you can see we have over 400 restaurants in Cambridge, and a wide variety of cuisines. Part of Cambridge being a very multicultural city, but also receiving many tourists from around the world, means that there are lots and lots of restaurants, lots and lots of different cuisines that you can find in the city. And the list below, you can see, is just something I've taken from the top 60 of those restaurants that I found on TripAdvisor. So there's a wide variety of kind of different cuisines you can sample at all levels, from a burger van or a van selling street food right up through to a 2 Michelin starred restaurant that will cost hundreds of pounds for a taster menu. So there's quite a wide range of cuisine options in Cambridge. I'll go to the question that I've put in there. Can I eat out or order food in? This is certainly something that I think comes up. The answer is yes, within reason. So if, for example, you want to, on a Friday, after you've finished your work, go and hang out with your friends, and within curfew, go and have a meal locally, absolutely fine. Likewise, if it's the weekend and you want to order in a delivery from Uber Eats, Just Eat or Deliveroo, that's fine. Our boarding team would probably be a bit perturbed if you were doing it every day, and would probably ask that question, because you're paying for meals and you're paying for our food. But within reason, occasionally you can do it, so don't worry too much. And the important thing to not forget, too far, is that the food is amazing in our dining room. Our team of catering staff provide amazing meals which are designed and catered to the tastes of international students. So wherever you are from, you will find dishes from your country or dishes that are familiar to you. We know that for international students, having meals that they recognize is a really, really important part of feeling at home within the college. So the food is fresh, it's nutritious, it's delicious, but it's designed to appeal to you guys coming in from all around the world. We do some British food as well, traditional staples, and we do have themed evenings and themed meals, but the food here really is for top notch. So the vast majority of the time you'll be eating in the college, you'll be enjoying our meals. Okay, things to do. Again, this comes with the caveat that it's impossible to kind of, list everything that we can do. I would say have a look, do your research, look on TripAdvisor, Google, find out what sort of things are going on in the city. There's always different things going on, different clubs, different events every year. So do have a look. But here's a few things that I think are kind of more popular and might appeal. Cinemas, we have 3 cinemas. We have an arts picture house, 2 more multiplex style cinemas, and also an IMAX as well, which is actually based in the cinema closest to the school. The Cambridge Junction and Corn Exchange, just on the top here, this is the Corn Exchange. These are live performance venues, so music, theatre, comedy, obviously bands, club nights. These take place in these areas as well, so these are the cultural scene of Cambridge. We have theatres, so plays, if you're interested in plays, if you're a student who's interested in studying literature, for example, or humanities-based subjects, quite often we might organise a trip to go and see those. Obviously London as well, with the theatre district as well, is very close and very accessible. 10-pin bowling, again, very close to the college, and quite often as part of kind of welcome or throughout the term, we'll organise bowling trips within the houses and competitions within the houses at 10 pin. So that's something that's nice and close. Clip and Climb, which is actually this picture here, which is kind of an adventure fun climbing centre. As I mentioned, there's no mountains in Cambridge. We have one hill, but Clip and Climb is a great space if you want to do some rock climbing in a more of a fun kind of setting as well. I've never been, my children have. It looks amazing. So I would be very happy to go with you if you organise a trip to Clip and Climb, because I think it looks brilliant, although I may not be the best at it. The Cambridge Science Centre, again, very close to the college, kind of an interactive science display. They're also very happy if you're a student who's a keen scientist and wants to do some volunteering. They're quite happy for students to volunteer there with them at the weekends and get some experience, which will look great on your personal statement. Escape rooms, which is kind of like a fun puzzle solving game, which is becoming much more popular in the UK. I'm not sure how popular they are around the world, but basically you solve a series of clues to escape from a room or to solve a riddle, and that's very popular. And the University Botanic Gardens, which again is very close to the college, which is again a lovely park, but kind of showcases flora from around the world. So they have tropical sections with redwoods, and also if you're a biologist, obviously you can go and work there, speak to them, and they'll be able to teach you more about that. One of the big resources, I think, for living in Cambridge and the UK in general is there is a wide variety of museums. The Fitzwilliam Museum, obviously, which contains many artifacts from various periods of history, works of art, technologies. So that's really, really interesting and useful to go and visit. Kettle's Yard, which is a local gallery of contemporary art, the Centre for Computing History. So obviously, if you're interested in computer science, computer gaming, that's a great location. You can see down there some visitors at the Cambridge Centre for Computing History. And then the university itself has many museums in its departments. So they have a museum of zoology, a museum of computing, a museum of technology, a museum of anthropology, a museum of economics, which you can go and visit for free and get more information, learn more about the context of the subject you're really interested in, and again, add layers to your personal statement that you can talk about. This is really important, a really good asset for you. Okay, so some of the things you can do around Cambridge. One thing I just wanted to focus on was Cambridge Leisure, because it's literally on our doorstep opposite the Tripos Court Hall of Residence. This is a site which has been built relatively recently in the last sort of 10 years, and they have kind of multiple different kind of activities you can do there. So home to an iPlex and a multiplex cinema. Our house parent Will runs his cinema club and takes students there pretty much on a weekly basis to go and watch the latest films. Bowling alley, arcade, pool hall. So you have 10-pin bowling there. You have arcades and games and also pool tables. A variety of shops and restaurants, including the Wagamama's and Italian restaurants, burger restaurant there as well, and pizza. Coffee shops. A gym, which is a pure gym, which is probably the cheapest gym to actually join in the UK, and has a wide range of free weights. Again, we don't have those on campus, but you can find them here, and it's literally a 5-minute walk from the school. Cambridge Junction, which is, again, a performance space with live comedy, music, theatre, arts, performances, and also a hotel. So if you have relatives visiting, they can stay very close. There are a range of hotels in the local areas. It's a very popular space with students, both local and international, during breaks, but also at the weekends as well. So have a look at the website, find out a little bit more about what's right on your doorstep. And I just wanted to finish off by really talking about kind of the area around Cambridge and the wider area of Cambridge. Obviously you're in the city, there's lots to do, you're going to be busy studying, but certainly at weekends and breaks, it's nice to get a wider sense of the UK. This is one really interesting, but also, it's helpful. You might be asked about this in an admissions interview. You might be asked about, what's your experience of the wider UK? Why do you want to come and study at our university? Why do you want to study in this area? So it's really useful, really important to get out and about and to experience the UK. And let's face it, it's pretty small, pretty easy to get around. So why not? In the immediate Cambridge area, there's quite a lot of stuff to go and see and go and do. The first thing I've popped up there, which is just in this picture here in the top right hand corner, is Ely. Cambridge to the north, there's an area of land called the Fens, Now, if you Google this, you'll find out a little bit more. But the defining characteristic of the fens is it's very flat. It was actually drained in about the 16th century by the Dutch. If you've ever been to Holland, you'll know it was drained from the sea. The same thing happened here. So it's actually in many parts below sea level. And Ely is the historic capital of the fens. You can see there the cathedral, which is one of the major cathedrals in England, a beautiful building. You can climb to the top of the tower there and have wonderful views of the surrounding countryside, but it's actually built on a hill. So Ely was actually built on a hill that rose out of the water, and it was called the Isle of Ely. So it was actually an island. And if you want to get an experience of what Cambridgeshire is like outside of Cambridge, remember Cambridge is a very multicultural place, lots of people from around the world, you'll hear lots of different languages, lots of different international companies are based here. But if you want to get a sense of what local life is like, Ely is a great place to go. It will take you 15 minutes on the train and cost you about £2, and you'll get an experience of a local market town and what Cambridgeshire life is about, and get to visit a beautiful, beautiful building. It's quite a quaint, charming city. Locally, there's also country parks, literally on the edge of the city centre, wonderful places to walk like Wandlebury. There are Roman roads, which are old chalk roads that are literally thousands of years old that you can walk along, well signposted. So there's some lovely, pleasant walks with wildflower meadows around Cambridge. I would recommend learning more and getting out and about on weekends as much as possible to relax, but also to experience them. Old abbeys and country houses. This house here is actually Wimpole Hall, and these are relics of the days back in the Victorian times in the 18th century when Britain was an economic superpower, and merchants, people who'd made their fortunes both in the UK and abroad, built these huge houses to showcase their wealth. So these are grand country houses. Unfortunately, as time went on, the families could no longer afford them. Maybe they lost their fortunes. They gave them to organisations such as the National Trust, which now run them on behalf of the UK public. So these are beautiful spaces to experience, say, formal gardens, or maybe these traditional houses that are very palatial, very luxurious, but full of history as well. So you'll learn about the way people lived. You'll learn about the history of the area. And these are just nice places to go and visit. Grantchester, which is very famous for students when they have their May balls, when they finish their exams, they will take a punt up the river to Grantchester and go and have a cream tea in the morning after they've done celebrating. Again, a beautiful area to walk by the river. And the other thing I just wanted to put in there, there's also wakeboarding. No particular reason. It just amuses me, the fact that you can go wakeboarding in a place that's 50 miles away from the sea. So that's actually based just to the north of Cambridge. There is a wakeboarding and waterboarding centre. So if you're interested in wakeboarding, you can continue that while you're here. Okay, day trips around Cambridge. These are all kind of within easy access. I didn't want to go too far. You know, obviously you can go to Manchester, you can go to Bristol, you can go all around the UK. But these are things that you can come back and forth in the day. And often as a college, we'll organise trips during half terms or weekends to some of these places. Obviously London. I'm not going to go too much into London. Hopefully you know plenty about London. Obviously it's very easy, very accessible. You can pretty much do what you want, you know, in terms of there's theatres, shopping, cultural activities, sightseeing, pretty much, you know, lots going on there. The beach, just down at the bottom here, this is actually a beach called Brancaster Beach. I was there a couple of weeks ago, and believe it or not, I actually took a swim in the sea. So at certain times of the year, you can actually swim in the sea in the UK. And this is available on a day trip. This is probably more of a natural beach. There also is the traditional British seaside experience. We call it a bucket and spade experience, which I would recommend you go and do, which is where you go to the seaside, have fish and chips, sit on the beach, maybe paddle, you roll your trousers up a little bit and walk in and out and realize that the sea is very cold, then come back and then maybe go and find somewhere warm and have an ice cream, usually while it's quite windy and blustery. But I would recommend it because it really is an experience. And if the weather is lovely, it's just as good as being in Spain and places like that. So do try and get to the beach. Lavenham, which is a small village or town nearby in Suffolk. The reason why I've included that is because it's famous as being the location where Harry Potter's parents lived, called Godric's Hollow. Forgive me, I'm not an expert on Harry Potter, but I know if you are, this is a location you can go and visit, and it does look exactly like it does in the movie. Very old traditional housing there. It's actually an old very prosperous town, actually one of the major towns of medieval England. Also, you can go to Harry Potter World, which is in Watford, which is within a day trip, and experience kind of how the Harry Potter movies were made and see lots of the props and things like that as well. That's a really good experience, although I'm not a huge fan. I really enjoyed going there. Milton Keynes and Bicester, again, if you're interested in shopping, Cambridge has good shopping options, but if you really want to go somewhere where there is a wide range of shopping, these are the places to go and all available. We organise a trip to Bicester, for example, before Christmas, which is where they have a lot of the designer outlets, and is very, very famous around the world. Oxford, if you live in Cambridge, we call it the other place because we don't like to talk about it, but you can go and visit for a day. Framlingham and Southwold, again, back in Suffolk. If you're a fan of Ed Sheeran, this is where he lives. Southwold is a beautiful traditional seaside town. Framlingham is the city where he was born, I think, or the town where he was born. And if you've heard the song Castle on the Hill, there is the castle that he's singing about. So you can go and visit that, and maybe you'll run into Ed doing a little bit of shopping in the town. Deptford Forest, again, lots of tracks. If you're into mountain biking, you can go mountain biking in the city. You can hire that. There's segways and also Go Ape, which is a treetop trekking experience, which is really, really good fun. And we organise that quite often every year for our students, and things like paintball and go-karting in the local area as well. So there's quite a lot you can do within the day and within a daily visit. Okay, thank you very much. That's kind of hopefully a useful, interesting overview of the city and the area around Cambridge. I thought I'd just leave you, and I'll leave this up. This is actually some of our students. Every year we ask our students to give their opinion of how they found it, and we ask them, how did you enjoy living in Cambridge? And I've just literally copied some of the responses that we got, and hopefully they give you a good idea of exactly why Cambridge is such a lovely location to study in, and why our students enjoy it so much. Brilliant. I will just stop sharing my window for 1 second just to see if there are any. Bear with me 1 second, just to see if we have any questions. I know there were a couple that came through. Okay. Hopefully you can still see me. Okay, so Artem has left a question. Can I go out to the city throughout the week? The answer to that, Artem, is yes. You can go out and visit, depending on your age. If, for example, you're a student who's aged over 16, under 16, you would be what we call a compulsory school age student. But if you're an older student, if, for example, you finish your lessons, you've done your homework, and you want to go out and go into the city or go to the cinema, for example, which is very popular amongst our students, you can do that, provided, one, you inform our boarding team where you're going. We have your contact number. They're always dotted around in your boarding, so it's very easy to go and find them, and you're back within curfew time as well. Okay, so as long as you stick to those rules, you can go to the city centre, you can go to the cinema, you can go and hang out with your friends, as long as you're back in time for curfew and ready for your learning the next day. Okay, I had a couple of questions beforehand, which I'll deal with. Please do ask any questions if you have them. I'm just going to answer that one live so that I know that it's done. Please do post them in the chat. I can see what you're posting, so please do post them. One of the questions I had was just asking about the safety of Cambridge. Is it a safe place to go? Is it a safe place to walk around? The answer to that is yes. I'm a lifelong Cambridge resident, as are all my friends and family, and we've had very, very little problems in a lifetime of walking around Cambridge and being in Cambridge. But that comes with a little bit of a caveat. Cambridge, is a city. There are 150,000 people here. As long as you take sensible precautions, it's a very safe city. So I would, if you live in a city in your home country, if you live in a large town, I would just advise to take the same precautions that you do there, and you should be absolutely fine. Within the boarding, obviously, it's a secure environment. We control who comes in and out of the school. If you're a younger student, we would maybe escort you into the city centre if we're doing activities as well. So we manage that very well. For an older student, if you are going out, like I was talking to Artem, as long as you come within curfew, that should be absolutely fine. But generally speaking, it's a pretty safe city. Any crime tends to be of the petty variety. So one of the things I would say is, if you are buying a bike, don't buy the most expensive bike and leave it into the city centre. It will be fine on campus, it will be fine in the daytime, but don't leave it overnight. Or maybe buy a little bit of a cheaper bike that's more of a run around, is a good way to go. So take sensible precautions and you should be fine. I had another question which just asking, if more of an academic question around the makeup of the school day, but I was asked, are there breaks between lessons, and when do breaks happen during the school day? Yes, generally speaking, when you have your lesson, it's 50 minutes. You'll be given a 5-minute break to leave that lesson and then get ready for the next lesson. There are mid-morning breaks, so you have a break about 11 o'clock for 20 minutes, so you can go and get a coffee, get some fresh air. Obviously, you have a lunch break, and depending on which course you're studying, you might have breaks throughout the day. Obviously, if you're doing A levels, your workload in terms of your lessons is probably a little bit lighter than GCSE, so you will have 3 periods. You might have breaks in the afternoon. You can use those as breaks. Obviously, you'll have some self-directed learning, so it's important that you cover that and you make sure you're getting your homework, but you will have the opportunity to take breaks. GCSE, it's a bit more of a fuller schedule, but again, you still have your morning break, you still have your afternoon break, and you'll get those breaks in the evening as well. So yes, there are breaks in between lessons, more designed for you to transfer and prepare for your next lesson, get books out of your locker, that kind of thing, but there are breaks structured throughout the day. Okay, just having a quick look to see if there's any chats. How long is the school day from FA? Okay, brilliant. Again, depends on the subject you're studying, the load of subjects you're doing. If you're studying a 4 A-level subject, it will be different from GCSEs. The school day starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. The first thing you have every morning is a registration period. So you register with your personal tutor as a tutor group, and then you'll have lessons through to your mid-morning break at 11 o'clock, 50-minute lessons. And then you'll have lessons through to lunch, which can either be at 10 past 12 or 1 o'clock, depending which year you're in. And then lessons will continue through the day till 4:30. So the school day essentially is from 9 till 4:30. Now, depending on which course you're taking, which subjects, you may finish a little bit early, you may have breaks during that day. But if you had a full day of lessons, that would be the day. Okay. I don't think we have any more questions. Please do post them if you do have any. Hopefully that was a useful insight into Cambridge. I didn't want to focus too much on the school because I wanted to give you guys a little insight. There is a really, really good webinar which you haven't attended, which was hosted a couple of weeks back, which was called Welcome to Abbey College Cambridge by my colleague Mike Corbett. Please do find that. It's on our YouTube. You should be able to find it on the website. I will send a link as well. And we are also planning on hosting a webinar with our college principal next Wednesday. So I'll send you the link to that one when that's set up. If you do have any more questions, please do post them in response when we send you the presentation and the video, and we'll do our best to answer them. But hopefully that was useful, and I will bid you farewell. Have a lovely day or evening wherever you are.